how's this new device going to be different to the Move Plus Pro?
For the gut, we're going to all laser because you just get better penetration into tissue. I like to look at the work of, for example, Ann Liebert. Her team's done really good work with gut microbiome, especially in people with Parkinson's.
Why are you pulsing the light?
First, there's just research showing better efficacy. And even at a conference like this, academics can't agree why that is. They would see that you would get a benefit on treating one limb, and you would see a benefit on the other, which is weird. What the heck? And it was showing there was actually cognitive improvement in young people with transcranial photobiomodulations. I actually very rarely use PBM myself.
Really?
Yeah.
So I sat down with Aaron from Kineon. Now, Aaron is heavily involved in research around PBM, photobiomodulation, or red light therapy. I have a good go at him in terms of asking some tricky questions that I myself haven't figured out yet. And I know you guys viewing this have asked me many, many times. So hang around for those questions. He also gives me some insights and updates on the products that Kineon are working on. We touch on lasers versus LEDs, how light shined onto the gut can impact the brain, downsides of red light therapy exposure, and much, much more. So let's go. All right, we are here at PBM 2024, and I've just bumped into Aaron from Kineon. Now, Aaron, you're the research lead, is that right?
Yeah, correct.
You're the brains of Kineon?
Well, that's generous, but yes, that's where it starts. Yeah.
I mean, I've spoken to Forrest a few times, and I have to admit he knows this stuff as well. So
it does. I know, for such a warm, fun, boisterous dude, he really does know his stuff. It's surprising.
I can't keep up, and I've been doing this for a very, very long time. So anyway, I'm excited to tap into your brain. So tell me, I mean, what are you working on at the moment? I know you've got some products coming out, so I guess you're all over there.
Yeah. So we have a ton of exciting stuff going on right now. We have a gut product coming. We are working on the Com Plus, which is a vagus nerve product, but this is a PBM conference, so I guess we'll stay away from that for now.
Oh, so there's no red light therapy in the vagus product?
No, that is purely transcutaneous electrical stimulation.
I should know that. Okay.
Yeah. There has been like very little bit, just the smallest little bit of research done on like PBM or red light therapy for vagus nerve stimulation. Yeah. Not convincing.
Yeah, right.
It's one of those ones where it's just the research isn't there yet. So why pursue something that doesn't have the a robust background?
Right. So yeah, I just assumed that's what you were tapping into. I thought you were Well, that's interesting. So you've got the gut, you've got the vagus.
Yeah.
And what was the other? The calm, or is that the vagus product?
The calm, Com Plus is big because it's involved with the sympathetic nervous system. So that's where the calm comes from.
Okay.
Is because it's all those pathways are involved with things like sleep and anxiety and all this parasympathetic systems.
So with the gut, let's look at that then. What's going on? You using laser? Using what wavelengths?
Yeah, so that's a great question. With the gut, we're doing all laser, and that's different than the Move Plus. There we have our 660, the red, that's an LED, and our 808 nanometer emitter, that's a laser, a VCSEL to be specific. But for the gut, we're going to all laser because you just get better penetration into tissue. So you have a better penetration depth with the laser. And
all things being equal, like wavelength and irradiance, LED versus laser, the laser is going to penetrate deeper.
Yeah, that just kind of proved out that while LED is very effective for a lot of different things, when you really need penetration, then laser's the way. Like even with, you can have narrow beam angles with LEDs. That's something you can do.
Yes.
And some companies have done that, and that's shown success, but it still is not competing with a laser.
How deep are you trying to go though with the gut?
Well, as deep as we can is the answer there. And it's a tricky one because there is, of course, a lot of us have differences, and everyone's different. And so
you mean some people are fat and some people are thin, but
well, that is the yes, that is. I was trying to be a little diplomatic, but yes, that's the straightforward. And so 5 to 6 centimeters. That's kind of the goal. Yeah.
So is there not a concern though with the laser, like with heat, thermal buildup?
The the power level.
Is it so concentrated? I mean, like, you know,
It's concentrated, but the beam area is not so much. It's not. So I guess why the penetration's better. It's not because it's concentrated. It's because of the divergence angle, which you can get from a laser compared to an LED. So it's more on the...
What's that? What exactly is the divergence angle? What does that mean?
It basically means if you have a beam of light and you measure how the beam area expands over a certain distance, that is the divergence angle. And so, I mean, that's limited. Not to get too much into the physics here, but like you'll often hear like diffraction limited beam, which would be, well, there's an m² value, which is like your beam parameter product. It gets complicated, but lasers are going to outperform LEDs in that regard.
But does it matter though, when that light hits tissue, it's going to scatter, diffuse and all that, right?
It does. It does. Of course, there is scattering, but it's if you can have the best beam that you can have, it's going to give you a better result, because scattering, of course, mostly ends up in loss. There is, of course, some where, you know, you scatter, you bounce around, you ping pong, and you get to what you want to get. But in general, scattering results in losses.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you know, is there a number that you're trying, like you said, what, 5-6 centimeters? You're trying to get
something around there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a number you're trying to get? Like, how much energy are you trying to get 5-6 centimeters through the tissue? Like,
yeah, that's a great question. And so I guess this kind of goes back to at Kineon, we have a lot of, you know, customers that care about our product, and we get a lot of questions from them. And one of the most common questions that I get is like, what does penetration depth mean? And that's a great question, because there's a lot of confusion, which is like for a good reason, because it's confusing. So how penetration depth is actually measured from a like scientific perspective is it doesn't depend on the power of the laser at all. It's purely based on, well, I guess the absorption, scattering, coefficients of tissue, and which is dependent on the wavelength,
of course.
And so, and with that, it's just depth. And so basically it's you take the distance where you get the ratio between the initial power and the distance where the ratio is 1/e, which is, it's just physics. But so which is around what, 37%, I think?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so that's how you would get your penetration depth. And so when we want to get, say we're putting in 80 milliwatts, that's not an exact number, but something, say that's for an emitter. If you do that, then say at 5 to 6, if that is your penetration depth, you would be getting maybe what, 30 milliwatts.
Okay.
Around there. Yeah.
And is that 30, I know this
is an incredibly rough number, but yes.
Is that what the research is showing to be beneficial? I actually know nothing about the gut health, gut microbiome, and photobiomodulation. I mean, I've seen a few papers, but it's not a topic that we've gone deep into or anything like that. So yeah, I'm just curious now, is that 20, 30, 40 milliwatts? I know dosing's just very complex, very variables, but just, is that what you're trying to get?
Yeah, something around there. We're primarily, at least in my mind, I like to look at the work of, for example, Ann Liebert. Her team's done really good work with gut microbiome, especially in people with Parkinson's. That's what
really?
Yeah. They,
wow.
Not to be promoting other companies here, but they have a company, Symbix. They do kind of a mix of transcranial and gut-based treatment for things like Parkinson's. And we're looking, because that's, of course, looking at the gut-brain axis, which is crazy. Like when you start to look at the science there, it's incredible that things like, you know, we think of serotonin being really important as like a
neurotransmitter.
Yeah, neurotransmitter. Thank you. It's crazy. Like, what is it? 80% of the serotonin in your body is in your gut. It's just in your gut. Like, because it's not just a neurotransmitter. It's, you know, you have enteroendocrine cells that are involved with communication between the gut and the brain, which is kind of getting almost back to the vagus nerve. But point is, your gut microbiome is very important for function in a wide variety of ways.
So is that what you're going after? It like
getting back to the parameters. We've been using basically similar values from what we're seeing from them
from their research. Okay, so then does that mean your gut product is actually a brain product? Like, are you trying to get light in there to improve neurotransmitter, the levels like that, Alzheimer's? I mean, is that the end goal there?
So,
because when people think gut problem, gut product, they think of like probiotics and like upsets. That's it. Yeah.
So that's one where, like, at this right now at this conference, there's some work on IBS and gut photobiomodulation treating IBS, which is great. There's also work on gut microbiome and photobiomodulation on things like Parkinson's. So it's more than just brain. It's interconnected. I guess that's the best way to put it.
So then, how's this new device going to be different to the Move Plus Pro? Like, could one not simply use the Move Plus Pro?
Yeah, that's a great question. The main difference is that we're somewhat turning up the power, and then we're also shifting to all lasers for that increased penetration. And we're also we're using different wavelengths. So we're using longer wavelengths, whereas in the Move Plus, we're using 660 and 808. Yeah, and then with the gut product, we're going to be using longer wavelengths because that's shown to have increased penetration. And so, like, something like 660, that's really good for superficial, like, of course you get some penetration, but it's limited. Whereas with longer wavelengths, you're able to get
how long
penetration,
like 900s, 1000.
Yeah, I don't want to. We're using 4 different wavelengths. I don't want to say the wrong numbers here.
Okay,
but yeah, we're things in the 800s, 900s, even 1000s.
Yeah, interesting. Is it going to be pulsed? Are you still pulsing there?
Yeah, so with pulsing, that's one where it's pulsing. It's not like in the like super fast repetition rate, but it's at a rate where it's faster than what the human eye can see. So it's not irritating to look at. It's,
So why are you using that? Why are you pulsing the light?
Yeah, so that's one where first there's just research showing better efficacy, and even at a conference like this, academics can't agree why that is. I wish they could. They can't.
About it.
And then also just because it reduces the risk of any sort of thermal effect. Yeah. Just because you can have heat dissipation. It happens very quickly. And so by pulsing, you're able to give a very small amount of time for heat dissipation, such that in that one somewhat concentrated area, you're not having temperatures get to it wouldn't even get to a dangerous level, but just where you would be not even uncomfortable.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, it would be fine. It would just be that when you get to around 42 to 45 degrees Celsius, it's not uncomfortable. It'll feel warm.
Okay.
It might even feel nice, but it would be you just in the biphasic dose response. Yeah. It's just one of those things where when you heat up tissue, you start to lose the benefit you see with PBM.
What? If you're trying to get 30 milliwatt centimeters squared into the treatment area, the target area,
correct? Yeah.
Does that not mean that you're potentially going to be overloading the skin, the level, the surface level?
So there is absorption along the way, of course, but at that power level, you're not going to be overloading anything. It's still very low. You'll see other devices, for example, at this conference even that are doing multiple watts with a laser, and even with that, like, depending on the parameters, you can do that in a way that doesn't create overheating.
Yeah, because there's a school of thought out there where people are like, you should never have any thermal buildup at all, not because of burn injuries or uncomfortableness or anything like that, but purely because they're saying the idea is that you're doing more harm than good. Like, you're not getting the benefit from it. But then you can flip that around and say, all right, if I'm trying to treat deep into a hip joint or something like that, with a decent amount of energy, you're gonna have to. You're gonna have a little bit. Yeah. So is it just a trade-off? Like, you may be overloading the skin, but at least you're getting deeper. What's your thoughts on this?
I think if you were doing like a like a higher power class 4 device, like, you know, some of these clinical lasers, then you do run into this kind of world where there's trade-offs. But I think when you're looking at the lower level, like more classic photobiomodulation, you're not running it. The trade-off, we haven't run into that problem because we're just not getting the amount of heat generation that would even introduce us to that situation.
What could happen?
What do you mean?
Like, yes, you could burn yourself, but like, let's say you're not quite at the burn level, but you're treating yourself with a laser, or like a high-powered laser. You're trying to get deep into the, you know, into the leg or something like that. I don't know. And you're trying to get a lot of energy in there, but you know, at the skin level, there's going to be a lot of thermal buildup there.
Yeah.
Like, other than the risk of burning and all that, is that even a problem?
I mean, the main problem would be that your therapeutic wouldn't produce any benefit. It would produce harm.
Okay, so what does that mean? It's reduce harm. What's going on?
What people have seen is that, you know, you see the classic, Arndt-Schultz biphasic dose response. Yeah, you have the, well, you know, it kind of looks like a bell curve.
I'll put it on screen.
Looks like a bell curve.
Yeah.
But if you look at when you really go past it, you do go down. Yeah. And that's because if you have...
But what's happening? What's going to happen there?
Like a biological
is it,
level? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Like, well, I even at a practical takeaway, like, if you're really trying to get a lot of energy into the marrow of the femur or something like that, right? But you know you're going to get a lot of thermal buildup, you know?
Yeah.
On the surface muscle at the top there. What, like, are you damaging the muscle? Like, are you just creating a bit of inflammation that the next day is going to be fine?
If you're running into the situation where you'd be damaging anything, you're way overdoing it. Like, this is like just biologically not what you should be doing. However, like, you're doing something wrong.
Chances are it's going to feel uncomfortable anyway.
I mean, right? You feel burning. Like, you're not going to like act. It would be very clear. And I mean, as someone that's worked in a somewhat high power laser lab and has, you know, had a little whoopsie with a finger, you feel it. It's not I mean, that was, you know, a concentrated 12 watts straight.
Wow.
Which, you know, whoops, it's fine. It's fine. But like, this is a completely different scenario with Kineon and, well, just anyone doing low level, you know, laser therapy, photobiomodulation. You're not going to run into a situation where you're getting burned. If you are, something's gone wrong.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So let me ask this another way then.
Sure.
The Move Plus Pro, how long are the treatment times? 10 minutes?
So yeah, we do 5, 10, 15.
That's right. Okay. Let's say, and that's optimal for, you know, you guys have obviously done a bit of research in terms of how and
it's one of those ones where, of course, like, it just depends.
So many
it depends on the indication. So where you're using it. It depends on the patient's
skin color.
Skin color.
Yeah.
It depends on a lot of things. And this is one where we don't think that our customers are stupid. And so, in a sense, of course, we want to provide them with the best protocols we can that are backed by science. But it's different for everybody. So we also do rely on people to make smart decisions and say, hey, this, you know, 10 minutes didn't seem to be having an effect. Let's try 15. Or 15 seemed like a bit much. Let's go to 10. And that's something that it sounds almost unscientific because it's so wishy-washy. But like, when you go to a conference and you hear the top minds in PBM, they cannot agree on a single protocol.
I know.
So it's really, as the patient, you know your body best. And so it's, of course, we want to provide accurate protocols, but we do rely on, you know, people understanding their own body.
And I think it's good that you're upfront about that as well, because there are companies that are like, this is what you use and anything else is wrong. But I want to go back to this biphasic dose response curve. Let's take your Move Plus Pro.
Sure.
Someone is running it on a sprained ankle.
Yep.
Somehow they plugged it in, it's charging as they're running it, and they're literally going to run it for 5 hours straight.
Sure. Don't do that, by the way.
I don't even know if you actually could. But okay, so that's going into the negative drop-off point, right?
Yeah.
What's going to happen? What are they doing? What damage is
where it's so normally when you see the biphasic dose response, there's a bit of like, it's hard to draw this out, but you have like
I'll put it on screen.
It goes back to 0, and then there's quite a ways, and then you would get a negative response.
What is that negative response?
So negative response would mean, I think here they were looking at reactive oxygen species. So, which kind of makes sense. You're basically, if you think of your mitochondria as an engine,
yes,
you're just running that baby dry. Like you're cranking it. And so you wouldn't want to do that. And you would want to make sure you're, turning that, V6 into a V8, but you don't want to go, you don't want to overwork it, which would be, overworking it's maybe not scientifically accurate, but it's a good way of thinking about it.
Okay, so let's run with this example a bit more.
Sure.
What do you think then would happen? Like they could actually wake up with a rash the next day? They have tender?
A rash would take like a severe overdose. That would be, I don't believe that would even be possible.
Okay.
The Move Plus, but with other devices, yeah, you could have a rash or burning. But what you would have would basically be an ineffective treatment, and you would have maybe even the thing is there's not a lot of research on fucking it up because people try not to.
No, but the thing is, so many people are like, "Oh no, you're overdoing it, or whatever."
And you're wondering, what does that look like?
What is overdoing it? And what is the risk? Okay, if it is a rash that then goes away, is it that bad? Like in terms of experimenting, I got a rash that was too much. Or is it like, no, you're doing like cellular damage that is going to take years to regrow? You know what I mean?
I think you would have, a burn would be cellular damage, of course,
right?
But you would have to go beyond levels we've even looked at to have some sort of irreparable damage. That's not something that is a problem at all here.
So in a nutshell then, the downsides of this, in terms of overdoing it, over delivery, over dosing from a treatment time, and very, very minimal,
incredibly minimal. You have a 99.9 like 0.9999 whatever percent chance that all that's going to happen is you're not going to see a therapeutic benefit. Yeah, I think that's something is much more of a concern, and that's why there's a ton more strict regulations around class 4 lasers, where that actually could lead to a health concern. Whereas with pretty much all of the low level devices, it's more you're going to run into not having a therapeutic.
Yeah, interesting. I know that was a bit of a fight to get an answer.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's like
it's complicated.
Yeah, but it's something that no one exactly what I said. They talk about overdoing it. I'm like, what does it mean?
No one wants to talk about what can go wrong. That's not good marketing. So
it's true.
But from a research perspective, it's interesting because it's weird because when you do PBM, right, you actually have a temporary increase in reactive oxygen species, which makes sense because that's a byproduct of mitochondrial metabolism. Is that a bad thing? No. We have a natural response to reactive oxygen species. We have, you can see an increase in things like superoxide dismutase, which is clearing superoxide, which is a reactive oxygen species. So it's not like this is some insult that our body can't handle. We have signaling even just built around reactive oxygen species. So it's, there's not really a good way to say it besides it's complicated.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video. If you are, can you just hit the like button? Simple 1-2 second press, all done. And if you want to see more videos like this, also subscribe. Though I should mention, I've got a lot of videos, including podcasts, that have been published over the last few years. So if you're new here, welcome, and be sure to check out some of those older interviews. Have you looked at blood irradiation, like just treating the blood, or treating the wrist, for instance, for full body, it's with systemic benefits?
Yeah, so that's one where we haven't really done a lot of research there, but you see it in the field. Like when people first discovered photobiomodulation in the 60s, they were doing it was in a mouse model, but they would see that you would get a benefit on treating one limb, and you would see a benefit on the other.
I know that.
Which is weird. What the heck? It doesn't make sense. But yeah, and so now the prevailing theory on why we're seeing that is because there's a lot of anti-inflammatory signaling molecules like cytokines and other factors that are in the bloodstream. There's also just free mitochondria in the bloodstream as well.
Crazy.
So there's a lot of things that can give you a systematic, or as fancy science people like to say, abscopal effects. I know. I know.
Oh, that's a new one.
You gotta make words that make yourself sound smart. But there's a lot of evidence there, but the best efficacy has been shown with local treatments. Yeah. So while there's protocols that have shown benefit, we are focusing on local.
Yeah. When I travel, obviously I don't have all my large devices, but I'll travel with your Move Plus Pro, and I'll just a few minutes on my wrist and under there, and I mean I've looked at some of the research and stuff, so I know there's going to be benefits, but I've always wondered, like, is that all we need? Like, can we just treat there and know the whole body is going to?
It would be nice. It would be awesome if that was all.
Yeah. So what about going back to the gut real quick?
Sure.
How's a lot of people watching this will have panels, right?
Yep.
Large panel, quite powerful, full. I don't know how big your gut device is, but
not that big.
A panel is covering the whole torso, right?
Yeah. So I guess the question is, why not just use a panel?
Yeah.
So that's a good question. Panels are, well, I don't know if there's any laser panels out there.
No,
kind of doubt it.
That'd be cool.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool if there was. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'd say the main problem there is that you have an exponential decay in power with respect to distance.
Where did you just go right up against the panel then?
So you could. I mean, I guess. Yeah.
I do it all the time.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to use a panel, the problem, they're not really, I'm assuming I don't know the specs for all of the panels out there, but I don't think they're usually made for contact use. But that would probably be the best way to design a panel, because you want to have consistent dosing. And if dosing changes a lot with respect to distance, it's going to be hard to do that, because unless you, I don't know, have a line of tape on the ground and it's challenging.
And the body's not perfectly flat and all that jazz. Yeah.
So that's, you could take a panel and make it contact, or you could use a device that's designed to be in contact. Yes, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And the laser is also an important thing that you have there instead of a LED, just for these deeper penetration applications.
Yeah, I guess the thing is though, like, there's so much we don't know from like you've mentioned the 20-30 milliwatts based on the research.
Which is very rough, but yes.
We may find in 5 years' time that 5 milliwatts or 500 milliwatts is even better,
Yeah, I think there is definitely work showing a ballpark of what's good. I don't want to act like there's a critical lack, but there is the fine details, of course, need to be worked in much more.
Yeah, okay. So I like, my approach is like, I'll have a panel which I use a couple times a week, just soak the body effectively, right? But then if I've got that sore knee or sore tooth or I got sunburn, then I'll go and use a more tailored product. I'm fortunate that I have a lot of products, so I can pick and choose the right one for the job, and treat that, as a one-off or a specific problem, right?
Yeah.
So it's why now this gut product is interesting, because I know people are going to ask that. They're like, well, why should I buy it? If maybe they've got a panel, or maybe they've got the Move Plus Pro and I can just move it around. You don't need to answer that because we've already touched on it. It's just an interesting space.
It's definitely interesting to think about, like, what is the best, like, for all these different indications, like, because, you wouldn't want to need to have a wrist product and an elbow product and a knee. That would be silly, right?
Yeah.
That's too much.
I think I've got all of those, but this is different.
They sell them. But...
you can get one for everything. I don't know about the elbow one. Well, yours can be used on the elbow, kind of.
Yeah, which is why, we've tried to make something that's flexible enough that you can treat musculoskeletal pain, arthritis, stuff like that. But it's nearly impossible to make a device that's well suited for every indication. That's also affordable and portable. So that, I think you're going to lose a few of those if you try to do everything at once.
Totally. Yeah, there's no one size. Well, there's no one tool for every job. Like
And if there was, it would be both expensive and non-portable. But yes.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. What about the brain? Do you know much about PBM in the brain?
Yeah, so that's one we have a product in development.
Yeah, right.
It's still early stages, so we're not there yet. But as far as the research goes, I think that's one of the most interesting fields of all in photobiomodulation. It's work on the brain. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
So tell me something. What do you know?
So yeah, I guess one thing is that there's a lot of work that's being done with neurodegenerative disease.
Right.
So things like Alzheimer's, dementia, and so what's going on there is that we see that a lot of the prevailing theory on Alzheimer's is, of course, protein aggregates, things like amyloid beta and tau. And while obviously these are important, when you look at the research that's been done, like the levels that you have of these protein aggregates do not correlate with the symptoms that you're seeing with people with neurodegenerative disease. And that's something where there's a lot of exciting research that's been done, in the past and is coming out now, that's looking at, hey, let's actually look at metabolism in the brain and things like hemodynamics, which is like blood flow, and ratio of oxygenated versus deoxygenated hemoglobin. There's just so many exciting things here, and that's where photobiomodulation can make a difference, is with basically metabolism of neuronal cells.
Does that have to be targeted? Like, can you just hit any part of the brain, or do you have to go into specific areas that are, I don't know much about the brain, like that are slowing down type thing?
That's one where, like, I read a lot of research on this, but I am very far from neurologist, so that's not my specialty. But yes, that people have shown. I know that there was even just at this conference, there was an article looking at, I think it was they were looking at the left versus right hemisphere and differences that they're seeing there. There's other important parameters that don't quite come up in other fields. For example, another article here that was looking at doing 10 hertz versus 40 hertz.
Yes.
Which is frequency, like repetition rate. So it means like so 40 hertz would be 40 pulses per second. And they were able to show that 40 hertz had, based on, because it kind of lines up with, I think there was gamma frequencies in the brain, which they saw an increased therapeutic effect from that frequency, which is awesome. I think it's super interesting looking at how these frequencies of photobiomodulation can actually line up with brainwave frequencies. Pretty crazy.
Yeah,
it almost feels like sci-fi sometimes.
Yeah, well, I know like Vielight, they're using alpha and gamma in their devices.
Yep.
Yeah, so what's your product going to do then? Can you share anything on that or not yet?
Don't want to share too much, but we're going to be, of course, using pulsed.
Yeah. And who's it going to be for? People with these cognitive decline, brain disorders, impairments, or is it going to be just for gen pop, me?
Yeah, is it going to be,
is there benefit for someone like myself? I touch wood, I've got no issues going on, but is there even going to be benefit if I'm shining light into my brain?
So that's an awesome one. I know for some reason, Texas has a bunch of really good research on transcranial photobiomodulation, and there's even been a study there. I can't remember if it was from Hanli Liu's lab or if it was from some people at Austin, but it was showing there was actually cognitive improvement in young people with transcranial photobiomodulation. So that's outstanding. That's crazy, and I think we're gonna see. I mean, this isn't what we're targeting, but I'm not at all going to be surprised when we see products that are made for people in esports, for people that are in even something like chess, or all of these students.
Oh, well, I know. Like, I know it's another company, but like Vielight, they've already got testimonials from people quite high up in some of those areas, isn't it? I reviewed their. I don't want to make this all about them, but it's kind of interesting. I reviewed their Duo product. So you can choose between alpha and gamma, and I did a cognitive. I can't remember the company. CogniFit. You go and do like an hour long.
Do some tests, and then
And I did that, and I used the product for like 3 months, I think, 4 or 5 times a week. And then I did a follow-up. There was no real change. So that's why
those are tricky, because I feel like when you have that long of a time frame, like,
I mean, it's the worst. It's the worst experiment ever.
Yeah.
And I say this in the review. Like, I don't want this to be seen as like, oh, it doesn't work, because there are like literally published studies on this exact product showing it does work, right?
Yeah.
But that's why, like, I was just speaking to them earlier, and he's like, Dr. Lim, like, it's like, we focus more on the clients, the patients who have these problems, and we're seeing amazing results. So it's always led me to think, am I just wasting my time using that? So yeah, you're saying like, there's research to show that. No,
I think that there's kind of a combination of things going on for why you're not going to see like awesome efficacy there. First, it's just hard to measure, and it's inconsistent, and like things like time of day, circadian rhythm, sleep. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, stress levels also.
Who knows what? So there's just so many things there. I mean, humans are tricky. And second, that I think there's still a lot that needs to be done in terms of dosing and just parameters.
Yeah, right.
And even things like the best strategy from a photonic standpoint. So just light delivery.
Yeah, interesting. It's funny though, because I know people that use some of these products and swear by it. Like, they'll use it before a presentation, or they'll use it before gaming. Like, one guy literally said that, like, I'll use it before gaming.
Ready to hop on League, and he's
is it a placebo thing? Who knows? But I mean, that's what will happen. Is more of these products come out, that you'll get more of these stories. Just like happens with your product, just like happens with the panels. You know, like the before and afters. I mean, obviously, it's going to be a little bit trickier to quantify that with the brain, but it's going to happen. I'm curious then, what's your personal, in a week, what's your personal routine with PBM?
So this might be a hot take, but as someone that is completely in the research all the time, I really want to be able to like convey to people the benefits in a way where I'm not like, I don't know, conflicted so I actually very rarely use PBM myself.
Really?
Yeah. And it's not that I don't think that it helps with a lot of things, but I think that it's, say I wanted to try out a new experimental drug. If I was talking to someone that takes it all the time, I would be like, well, duh.
Yeah.
Because you're like, sipping the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not sipping the Kool-Aid, I'm reading the research.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at.
Hey man, well, yeah, great conversation. Is there anything else you'd like? I feel like we could talk for hours on this. But I'm conscious of the time. I'm sure there's a lot of presentations you want to see.
Of course.
Is there anything that I
guess? Yeah, with just continuing our talk on transcranial photobiomodulation, one thing that we are interested in and pursuing is to have diagnostic capabilities built into a photobiomodulation device, because there's huge potential here for a variety of reasons. One is that there's been a lot of advancements with optical measurement techniques for brain function. So things like FNIRS, which is functional near-infrared spectroscopy. So with this, you can measure things like hemodynamics. Also, if there's a kind of a variation on this called BB-NIRS, or broadband near-infrared spectroscopy, which gives you the added benefit of being able to measure cytochrome C oxidase, which is exactly what we're targeting with photobiomodulation.
Yeah.
And so if you can measure cytochrome C oxidase and do this optically while you're doing photobiomodulation, you are able to not just evaluate, hey, there's actual results happening here, but I don't want to give too much away, but there's a lot of potential with what you can do with this kind of system. And this has been done, but only in extremely limited settings. Because, for example, this has been done, I mentioned earlier, in Hanli Liu's lab. But because with their source for broadband near-infrared spectroscopy was a very large halogen lamp that was then fiber. So that would be impossible to do in a home setting. And so if you could make a product that could do that in a home setting, there's some really, really cool work that could be done. And that's something that is very, very exciting to me.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating. I didn't even know this was a thing. I thought you were going to go down the path of QEEGs.
See, yeah, that's one where EEG is also a great diagnostic strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I think earlier we had a talk where someone was measuring their like real-time measurement with EEG during photobiomodulation, and one of the questions that came up was, hey, don't you have interference from your electronics, and that messes with your EEG? And the answer from the presenter was, oh yeah. And so these are real problems. And there's also EEG gives you different data than you would get from FNIRS or BB-NIRS, and that's even more in line. What you would get from this optical diagnostics, it's even more in line with what we're interested in. So that it also makes sense from the price point. That's a technology that can be made. That's something that's closer to what a normal consumer could purchase. Where EEG is still very limited.
And there's potential flaws, with readings and all of that.
Yeah, and you need like good
that's it.
Contact with the scalp. I mean,
I have a little bit of experience with QEEGs, and I looked at some of the more consumer level devices, and the neurologist we were working with was like,
good luck.
Play with them, sure, but I'm not going to advise based on those readings, and I don't think you should even take any sort of recommendation off what it's spitting out. So stayed away for that reason. But hey man, I'm excited to see what you guys are coming up with now. Like seriously, I'm like, this sounds really, really cool.
We're very excited as well.
Super thankful for your time. I hope I haven't hold you up and
not at all.
Watch this space. All right, guys, links and everything will be down below, and leave any questions or comments you may have. And that is a wrap. Now, if you want to check out more of the Kineon products, there's a link down below. I do have a discount link. I am affiliated with them, so you'll save, I get a commission. But check out their website. They've got some really good quality articles over there, and Aaron is heavily involved in them. So yeah, really good reads. Plus, they're about to launch some new products. So all of that content's down below. I've interviewed the co-founders of Kineon. I've also done a lot of other interviews. Here's one sitting up here. You can click that button whenever you want and check that interview out.